Hey, didn't see you there. Welcome to the Get Wealth Podcast. My name is Brennan Wiersma, and I'd like to take you down a path that few have had the privilege of traveling on. The path of wealth and riches. I'm going to take you door to door of the nicest houses, real estate agent to real estate agent, homeowner to homeowner, investor to investor. So, if that sounds like something you're interested in, then sit back, relax, get some popcorn, and lastly, get wealth, ladies and gentlemen.
Peoples have increasingly become crazy and self-destructive because through excessive thinking they have lost touch with reality. That's to say, we confuse science with the real world.
Yeah, so I work in luxury travel sales. So I design custom journeys around the world for high net worth clients, typically starting at around like $20,000 to $50,000 for a trip.
Wow.
Pretty frequently.
Yeah.
So most clients travel they travel multiple times a year. Typically you have like a repeat client base.
Okay, so the first question I got to ask is, how many famous people do you do that for?
You get a lot of athletes.
Yeah.
So I had like an Atlanta Falcons defensive lineman that just planned a trip to South Africa. Deandre Hopkins, we ran into him last night. He's clearly interested in a trip to Tanzania.
Wow.
So.
Okay, Tanzania. Never been there.
It's a funny name. I just laugh at it.
So I focus specifically on Africa. So safari trips.
Yeah.
Have you been on one of those?
I go multiple times a year. Yeah. So I've been on dozens.
So many cool things.
Yeah. So I travel pretty frequently.
Wow, dude, that sounds like a crazy cool job. How did you get into that?
Pretty random. I used to work in finance in a large investment firm and wanted to get more on the sell side and found the travel industry just to be pretty interesting. And from the perks, you have incredible vacation time. You work directly with high net worth clients on a regular basis, on a very casual basis.
You're pretty fucking good at this thing.
You do make a lot of connections, similar to like what you're doing now. You know, you rub shoulders with some really powerful people.
Hey man,
regularly.
You're making money doing it though. I'm just
Hey,
crashing
ladies.
bachelor parties.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sales role. So you establish your business. You know, I mean, the key is to making long-standing relationships with these guys so that they take their trip, and they travel again with you multiple times year over year, so you can continue earning.
Yeah.
And they don't need to look for other alternatives.
Yeah. So do you end up having returning clients that
All the
come
time.
back to you?
That's our entire business model is repeat business.
You guys got names?
Your
It's way
contact
easier
list
to.
okay.
It's harder to earn new clients and more expensive to earn new clients than to continually get repeat clients.
Right. Okay. And then how many of those clients bring you in clients, or is it
A lot, tons.
Yeah.
On average, a referral will bring in 10 new clients.
50% Tinder clients?
Tender clients. Yeah. So if you get one person that has a successful trip, they'll typically at least share that information with 10 new people, and normally we'll book about average 3 or 4 of those.
dude?
So
That's
it's an entire web that you build from and so eventually you'll stop spending money on advertising and clickbait because it's all referral based 100%. That's the model we have in the United Kingdom.
that's really interesting. Yeah. What's up?
So why podcast?
Podcast?
Yeah.
So the idea originally started out as not a podcast. It was me trying to figure out how to meet people that would be good contacts and could help me in my endeavors. And I figured the best way to do that is just by knocking on doors of super nice houses, because those people probably have some information that I could use.
Right.
But that sounds kind of weird to just go and ask to sit in their living room and talk with it for an hour. So I figured, why not say I have a podcast, and then that way I can record it and save it for later. I can look back on it, and also I can grow that and have a presence online, and eventually that could turn into something. So it started out as personal reasons of just wanting to meet people and expand my network, and then I figured I could share that to people that would want to listen to it as well. So that is kind of helpful for me, because I would have never started a podcast, but I don't really care if people watch it now, because for me. So
Right.
I'm just trying to meet the people on my own and have those.
No, exactly. So let's hear about Slider.
He owns a. He's probably the richest one here, honestly.
All right,
That's
what's up, man?
negative.
Even with COVID, he's doing great.
Yeah, no, I'm actually unemployed.
That's no small feat.
So ask away, bro.
All right, what do you do? What?
I own a micro transit company. We specialize in shuttles and basically first last mile.
Shuttles and what was the last part?
I said first last mile, so essentially shuttles, scooters, bikes, stuff that gets you from point A to point B. That's relatively inexpensive. So
Hey, nice, man. How'd you get involved with that?
actually, this guy over here told me I couldn't do it, so I did it. So
Okay.
I love this guy because of it. He pushed me to be a better person. So, but in reality, actually that is reality. I saw a need for it and saw an opening. There's a lot of people that do it, and I just did it. So do you really go house to house, just like opening up doors? And
Yeah,
just
dude,
saying,
I
hey?
get told no
So, like,
all day long.
legitimately, like you just showed up at our house.
Yeah.
I love it, and I'm not making fun of you for it. I think it's fucking cool as hell.
I appreciate
You
it.
literally showed up to our house and just said, "Hey, I thought you were the delivery dude." I'm like, "Oh wait, this guy's got some pizza," and then this guy showed up with a fucking podcast set. So is that what you do?
That's what I've been doing recently. I try to do it through people I know and word of mouth, but
Would you say your success rate is, like, percentage-wise? On
10%.
10%? That's not bad, though.
1 in 10 people say they'll sit down and have a conversation with me.
Why'd you pick our house?
It's just freaking huge. That's
Did you choose any other
It's
house?
cool. I mean,
yeah, dude. There's an $11 million one that had their gate open, and I walked up to the front door, and I felt like an annoyance because they were having dinner, but I gave them my information. They said they're gonna call me, so that'd be pretty sick.
The house right across the street, like 1 or 2 over, is like probably like 10 acres. I mean, it's fucking huge with like
Yeah,
a
I saw
water
those.
park in the back and
The hard part is people with this kind of wealth, where they have
gate, yeah.
the gate is the big problem. I
Yeah.
can't get through, but
so what's your goal with this whole podcast?
my goal is
And what's
to-
the name of the podcast? I want to follow it. Huh? I'm sorry.
It's
Yeah.
the Get Wealth podcast.
Get Wealth? Cool.
Yeah, and it's play on the Get Wealth.
Yeah,
Get Wealth.
I got you.
So, that's what I do. I try to learn how to get wealth.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from Arlington, Washington, but I've been going to
Arlington,
school.
Washington.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
So what's your, I mean, like current kind of business plan for what you're, obviously you're trying to gain ideas and direction and
Yeah.
rub shoulders with some people and make connections. What are you actually like currently doing right now?
So my current thing,
This is why I hated him, but I love him.
I'm going to school right now. I'm a
Right.
senior at Embry-Riddle. I have my commercial pilot license, so I'm going to be flight instructing probably for around 2 years, and from
That's
there,
like, so like you're obviously like commercial pilot, like that's a very
specific
like clear
career.
path that you have.
for
you
sure.
know, so you know exactly what steps you need to complete. So why is this like supplementary to that, since that's a lot on its own?
It is a lot on its own. But I've always had in the back of my mind that wasn't going to be my main source of income, because as an airline pilot, you can potentially have half the month off later
Okay.
on in your
That's
career.
a good
Same
answer.
thing with private or corporate. You have time to branch out, and I've always been telling people I want that to be for fun, and however else I can make that supplement or passive income, I will.
Where do you plan to do your piloting hours? Are you doing them all here, or where? Are you,
So,
'cause I know it's challenging to get.
Yeah, it's for sure, especially right now.
Yeah.
I work in Africa, and a lot of guys will fly out there and run like small charter planes, safari planes, and get their hours out there because it's really cheap.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you ever have someone who needs a pilot, give them
I
my
have tons
number.
of connections for safari pilots. Yeah.
Oh, no kidding, dude.
Yeah,
I
a
gotta
lot of
get your
guys will go
information.
out there. They run, basically like small commercial airlines, but they do scheduled routes to different safari destinations, like
Yeah.
small, probably 8 to 12 seater planes, and it's pretty popular. It's
Yeah,
a great
man,
way to
that's-
get your hours and get also like crazy exposure to remote destinations around the world. You can do stopovers, stay at the lodges. You get discounted pilot rates everywhere.
That's another reason why I picked aviation, is I want to travel a lot, and that provides a channel to do that.
Yeah.
So aviation is where I'm focusing right now and putting the majority of my effort, but eventually I want to invest in real estate and own properties and have that be a source of supplemental income. That just takes some upfront investing. So meeting people through this, growing the channel, maybe making money off it one day.
How many hours you got left in your pilot training?
I got like 700 left until
700, wow.
Which flying as a flight instructor
it sounds like a lot, but it's really not.
It's about
things.
about 7 months to 8 months of flight instructing, depending.
Not bad.
But so going back to you said you do
this
sales.
This guy's fucking interesting as fuck. He's been to how many? You've been to what? 75, 62 countries.
Dude, that's insane.
62 countries in the world, mainly in the like what? Middle West, Mid East, or something like that. No, all over. Okay. But this guy literally has been to more places than I can count. So his name's Tom Wilkinson, King Cliff.
I'm in the travel industry right now to learn as much as I can and soak up information. So I've already kind of climbed up to the top level of sales I can reach. And really in a lot of sales position type jobs, the sales, so if you're out of the 100 associates, you're the top producing sales exec, you make more than a managerial position of the same caliber. So it doesn't actually make sense to, promote into a managerial position because you'll actually make less salary. So I think I'm just still trying to learn the ins and outs of the travel industry before I make my next move, whether that's...
Okay, so a few questions. Let's focus on sales a little bit. It sounds like you do pretty well with sales. What advice would you give to sell anything, or what's your blueprint for that? And then what are your top 3 or a book that you would recommend about selling?
Well, first of all, it's the other person now, Mike. I think just be yourself, to be completely honest. Like, if sales is very, very difficult, regardless of who you are, and but sometimes it's very easy for certain people. And you know what? Just be yourself. If you don't like sales, don't get in sales. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's the fucking hardest thing you can do. But also, if you're good at it, if you like it, then do it. And just don't try to be somebody you're not. And that's with all aspects of life. Regardless of what you do, business-wise or anything like that, sales, be yourself, because it doesn't matter. Don't try to be somebody you're not. Anyways, here's Tom.
I'd say, that's a good point. Obviously, sales is not for everyone. I work in the travel industry, which is very appealing to a lot of people that have traveled or have, want to go places. And, like you said, you want to travel. Everybody wants to travel, and it draws a lot of attention. Yeah. But this is sales. It's not as glamorous as it all looks. You have to have, pretty strong sales presence and some natural tendencies and characteristics that are hard to build with, from scratch. Anybody can become a salesman, but it's a lot harder for somebody that's not a natural salesman.
Right. Just talking to you, I can kind of tell you got a knack for it.
Yeah. And so I think that makes the role itself really easy. So if you find that you have a lot of those tendencies, you like interacting with people directly, you find that you're a social person, you like doing things like this where you're just, talking to a stranger and, those are obviously good sales techniques, I would say probably the most important thing for me, because, whatever you're selling, sometimes you sell a shit product, you don't really get to choose sometimes what you sell. It's great when you choose something that you actually are passionate about, and, you really believe in, and that makes it an easy sell. But you don't always get that. Yeah. That's the goal, is to sell something that is, in all those categories. But I would say you have, no matter what you're selling, you always have to have a human connection. Human connection? Yeah. It's really got it from the very beginning of the conversation. If it comes across as a sales call, you're not going to get very far. I was reading a book. And that's the biggest pitfall that people fall into, because in sales training, you have so many prompts that you go through, and you read these scripts that you kind of have, and the structure and the whole process of sales, and all of it's bullshit. Okay. It's a lot of bullshit. They're good things to know and have in the back of your mind, but if you don't address it like a conversation between a human and another human, just trying to get to know each other, what their goals are and what they actually want and need, you're not going to have a successful sales career. Right. And it sounds like with the sales that you're dealing with people that have
their mind set on planning a trip. They already want to do that, so you're kind of just guiding them to make a decision they were already going to make and feel good about it.
Exactly. So this is inbound sales where they're coming to me directly. I'm not trying to pitch them on something. You know, they're already coming to me with a need. They need help planning their trip. They don't know what they're doing. So, I mean, obviously they have a need. They're already coming to me. And then from there, I mean, you basically are just fulfilling that need. So,
yeah. So how much of that was you just being a salesman versus learning and diving into the craft and really trying to work on your craft as far as developing skills? Did you read books? Did you look on YouTube? Did you just learn from other people?
I definitely could do better. Obviously, like, books are a great resource. There's a lot of good sales resources. I think for me, though, I've never had an issue with the sales part of the role.
Okay.
So I've never really pushed myself to expand further on it because I don't need to.
Yeah.
For me, it's more, learning how to the industry better. Because I think you brought up a good point. You know, you're guiding somebody. They're already coming with what they know. They have their own, predetermined, things and notions in their mind.
Yeah.
But my job is to be an expert. They're coming to me not only to help them plan this, but to tell them actually what they should be doing and why they can't do it themselves.
Right. Okay.
And so one of the biggest things, once I've made that human connection, is to prove that I am an expert.
Yeah.
So if they don't believe I'm actually the most knowledgeable person they've ever spoken to, then why are they even on the phone with me in the first place?
Yeah.
So you have to prove that with, specific examples and, a lot of,
Yeah, that probably makes a big difference. One of my good buddies is in the aircraft sales business.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of looking to branch into that a little bit, but that's a very specific industry where people are very particular about what they want, and they kind of already know what they want. They just want you to sound like you know what you're talking about. So it sounds like you sell trips that you have to know the inside and out like the back of your hand.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? That's the whole point of why I go and spend months in Africa every year, is so that I come back. And if you want to go gorilla trekking in Uganda, Rwanda, what's the difference? I'm not Googling and finding out, what are good quoting points. I'm telling you from my experience. I've trekked every trail there is in the entire country. I can tell you specific, features about the wildlife, different gorilla families, different trails, different terrains, challenging versus non-challenging versus weather patterns, and all of those things that you're not going to find online because it's all subjective.
What's the craziest thing you've experienced in Africa doing one of these trips?
I would say probably chimpanzee trekking by far.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Dude,
without a doubt.
Those things are crazy.
I mean, doing gorilla and ape trekking is very different than traditional safari, because normally safari you're in a vehicle.
Yeah.
And you're going around in a vehicle. It's still great. You see amazing things. It's exciting. But after you've done 100 game drives in a vehicle, and then you start doing these treks where you're actually on foot, it's a game changer. So you're going with a guide through the forest, totally uncharted terrain a lot of the time. These guides are wild. They don't follow the rules like we do here. They have, they're going fast. And when we did a chimpanzee trek, you're down in this massive gorge, total rainforest terrain. It's humid. You're like kind of bushwhacking through. And chimpanzees are wild. I mean, they're loud, they're noisy, they're rambunctious, they swing in the trees, they kind of beat the trees, they make a lot of noise, they're strong and scary. Gorillas are kind of more passive. They kind of, sit there, they're in families, they don't really interact in the same way that chimpanzees do. So tracking chimpanzees on foot is about the wildest thing you can possibly do in Africa.
Chimpanzees are not nice animals, right?
They're incredibly violent.
They basically act like people without laws. So basically Seattle.
Yeah, so like all the different apes, there's 4 great apes.
Yeah,
There's the gorillas, the chimpanzees, the orangutans, and then the bonobos, which are basically like chimpanzees that just have a lot of sex. So gorillas are more family dynamics with an alpha male, whereas chimpanzees are incredibly intricate communities. They have they overthrow power. They plot against each other. There's not necessarily one alpha male. There's groups that gang up together against each other. It's this incredibly complex society, and so the way they interact together when you see them is very, very different and more. It's interesting. It's frightening. They're so similar to us in so many ways as well.
So you sell a lot of trips to people that have a lot of money. How do you? Because this is a very specific trip, Africa. It sounds like they're putting themselves in danger a little bit. It's kind of wild. Do you find a certain type of rich person who looks for these trips versus?
Yes and no. You get a lot of people retired because typically trips to Africa, these are longer length trips. It's not taking a weekend in Paris. You're dedicating 2 weeks usually or more. So it's definitely people with time, whether they're significantly wealthy and don't necessarily work full time or fully retired is definitely a big trend. It's expensive. I mean, a lot of the lodges that I work with are $1,000 per person per day. That's pretty standard. So it can go up a lot more than that. You can spend $3,000 per person per day at some dollar. I mean, the amount of wealth it costs to do these high-end safaris makes the top hotel in Paris look like nothing. I mean, it's very, very expensive because of the remote location of all these places, the conservation required.
Cheetos all day.
I mean, it's pretty. You attract a certain type of traveler, typically adventurous in some ways, but not always. Sometimes it's just people that have enough money to do whatever they want.
What's the most expensive trip you've ever sold?
I mean, I've definitely done 100K plus trips. Those are not all that uncommon, especially, I think, highest per person head count is probably like maybe 40K for a couple that went pretty high out, all top of line, private planes, things like that. But we have one specific client that travels with us frequently. She's probably done 30 trips with us, and she'll charter out helicopters to do, she just did like Yellowstone National Park for like 50K for a weekend, just because she rented out the whole lodge, chartered a helicopter in and out, and just there's nothing that is too expensive.
And you get to know these people. And
so usually you'll develop. I mean, certain clients will travel with you repeatedly, so you do develop relationships pretty in depth with these people. You have their personal emails. You do become almost like a friend, because it's not a typical travel agent type environment. We're not travel agents. I actually don't like the term at all. I think it's demeaning, because travel agents are clickbook.
Yeah.
They don't do anything really of real expert knowledge. We're travel designers, or travel architect is really what I would call it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself going from here, or is this where you want to be?
I like the travel industry a lot more than I thought I did. I mean, I went purely on a finance track. I graduated top of my class. I worked in a very prestigious position in an investment firm, a large investment firm. I was well connected there, and just didn't feel like it was the thing with large firms of any Fortune 500 company is the ladder is so high. You're completing a task for somebody who's completing a task for somebody who's completing a task, and you don't feel like you're a decision maker.
Yeah. And
I think in the travel industry, I think it's there's a lot of opportunity there. Firms are smaller. They're more kind of the U.S. travel market is decades behind the European and UK travel market.
Really?
So even though you'd think like travel agent, like that's a dying breed, it's exploding right now. It's a young industry as a whole, and we're just starting to see the U.S. now because before the internet, people were afraid of travel. Not only people traveled were very wealthy individuals that were cultured, and had access to, specific information. Now with the new age of technology and information, you have Farmer Joe and Susan who, live out in Oklahoma and have millions of dollars of, farm area that are like, hey, let's go to Africa.
Yeah.
That's a new trend. And so even though people are using travel agents less and booking things on their own, the amount of just more clientele that's becoming, knowledgeable enough to even take a trip overshadows that.
Yeah. It seems like it's not necessarily out of they need, it's more of a convenience, and people that have the resources to do that.
Huge convenience factor.
Yeah, why wouldn't they want to save themselves the trouble of planning a trip when maybe they could do it themselves, but probably not as good as someone who does it all the time?
Not even close.
Yeah.
You get, there's definitely convenience factors, a big one. People just are, and then just afraid. People just don't want to make mistakes. They're not really sure what to do, where to start. Or they don't have the time.
Yeah.
A lot of the CEO types are just, look, I don't have the time. This is what I want. Make it happen. They're willing to pay a premium, just like they pay a premium for any luxury good. They're not going to go shop around for, 10 different diamond stores to get the right diamond they want. They're going to go to one that they were recommended and pay
course.
whatever it costs because they know it's recommended to them by someone they trust.
Yeah. How has the pandemic affected your work? Have you
It's been
felt
tough.
Yeah.
Really March and April were, it's just a lot of confusion. There's misleading information coming in. We don't really even know what the truth is. There's just these mass closures, fear media, kind of fear-mongering in a lot of ways. So April, May was tough because you don't really know what the future holds. Is the whole travel industry going to collapse? Are we all doomed? Is the country going to implode,
Yeah.
So that was tough. It's already recovered. So we're already back to, millions of dollars of sales again, monthly basis, just from people planning for next year because they're tired of sitting in their homes. People are tired of it. People don't really, there's enough information now where people really aren't concerned about coronavirus anymore. Most of us are fine.
They're going to start living life again.
Exactly. People have been accumulating wealth for a lot of people that haven't been able to spend money as much as they'd love to try. There's no way to spend money right now. So you have all this money you're earning, you have all this vacation time, and people are tired of sitting at home.
What a good problem to have, dude.
And for most of these big trips that high-end net worth clients plan, it's typically 9 to 12 months in advance. So you're already looking out far enough where you're thinking should be not a problem in a year from now, we would assume.
So you sell these trips. How do you end up going on the trips?
So I don't go as part of the trip. I'm not like booking a trip and then coming as your personal guide. I'm going, my company sends me. And even if my company doesn't send me, I could basically contact any luxury property in most countries and say, hey, this is who I am, this is who I work for. I'd like to come see your property so I can sell it on your behalf, and they'll just welcome me.
That is a kick-ass job.
It's a huge perk. So even like the Ritz-Carlton in Beaver Creek, Colorado.
All right. In closing, what would be your number one piece of advice you would tell your 20-year-old self?
I'd say, I've always kind of had this mentality, but I think I could have done it definitely better. Would be, you're always one connection away from something you never would have expected. You never know who you're going to meet that can lead to something extraordinary. You talk to people that bump into somebody and, they end up becoming business partners, or you never really know who you're talking to, so never, kind of write off an opportunity to do exactly what you're doing right now.
I love it.
I like that. And I would say, at least for back when I was in college, use your resources in college. Colleges have a ton of resources outside of the, education and learning. Obviously, that's a little bit of bullshit. I skated through college, did the bare minimum, and, I got top grades. But I didn't access the massive amount of wealth that they have, their network, their connections. They can do a lot for you outside of just give you a degree. Tap into that as much as you can. Push them to get your value out of it. You're paying them all this money. Make them earn it.
Yeah.
Talk to heads of programs. Talk to alumni. There is like a fraternity of kind of information there.
Alrighty. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. That's some fantastic advice, and I'm definitely gonna remember that. So
I don't have a business card, but
alrighty.
Reality is